Yep, recording is ready.
Okay, then this is Bill Rowinski, Vice Chair. I'd like to call to order the May 4th, 2020 regular meeting of the Town of Woodstock Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency. We'll start with the roll call. This is Bill Rowinski, Vice Chair.
Marla Butts, Secretary.
Stuart Peasley.
Victor?
Victor Peabody.
And this is Bill again. Mark has not connected yet.
Mark will not be joining us. He can't get home quick enough to get onto the meeting.
Okay, and we'll note that the chair, Mark Parker, is absent. And this is Bill Rowinski again, Vice Chair. Appointments of alternates, we have no alternates, and we do have a quorum. Right now, we will look at the minutes of the previous meeting, the meeting of February 3rd, 2020. Does anybody have any comments about that meeting or correction?
I found those.
I do
minutes
not.
acceptable
Victor
without
Peabody.
correction. Oh, sorry.
Marla, did you have something?
Marla Butts,
Yes.
Agency Commissioner. No, I have no problem with the minutes as read, as presented.
Motion?
Don't have to have one if you don't want one, but I'll move to accept the minutes of February 3rd, 2020 as presented.
Stuart Peasley, I second.
Thanks.
Trying to figure out the best way to vote on this. All in favor, say aye.
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 Are there any that are not in favor? Any abstentions? So the motion passes. We'll move on to item number 5, pending applications, number 032003. Sorry, this is Bill Rowinski again, the Vice Chair. NW Swadia LLC, doing business as North Woodstock Country Store, proposed automobile service station. We received a packet of information from Burton Engineering. Some of you might have other documents also. Does anybody have any questions, comments at this point about any of the documents?
Yes, Marla Butts speaking.
Yes.
2 points. First of all, Tina, can you corroborate that the submission date was February 25th, 2020?
That is correct.
Okay, in light of that, the statutory receipt date is March 31st, 2020. That's 35 days after submission to Town Hall. So normally the Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Agency would have to either hold a hearing or render decision by June 4th, 2020, the 65-day time frame in the statute that was extended up to an additional 90 days based on the Governor's Executive Order 71, Part 19, Municipal Land Use Agency time deadlines and notice requirements issued due to the COVID pandemic. This would establish a maximum date of September 2nd, 2020, without any additional extensions. Timelines should be reviewed today, along with any advice received from the town's attorney or the consulting engineer. So Tina, my question to you is, did we receive anything from the town attorney regarding deadlines or the consulting engineer regarding review of the application?
This is
I
Tina,
see you sent it.
Wetlands agent. I did receive a letter today from our town engineer that reviewed the application, and I emailed it to everyone. and it is
That's
on the
dated May.
website.
Marla Butt speaking. That's dated May 4th, 2020, signed by Suzanne Choate, PE.
Yes, that's correct. And I did get an email from the applicant indicating that they would comply with the conditions on here without a problem.
Marla Butt speaking again. I sent to you, Tina, a list of additional information I thought that was needed. Did you forward that to the applicant?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so at this, Marla Butt speaking, at this juncture, Bill, I think the applicant just needs to acknowledge that they've received these documents and are prepared to respond to them.
We're getting some interference, I might mention. It's really hard to make out all of the conversation, but I don't know if it's either Bill or Vic. It might be coming from a phone.
I'm hearing it. This is Victor Peabody. I'm hearing, it's a little wavy, but I'm getting it.
All right.
And I'm on a landline, so
So
it should be good.
So could everybody else Marla Butt speaking, could everybody else other than the Wetlands Commission be muted?
I don't know how I would sign in. This is Thomas Scott, sorry. My iPhone, I don't know how I would log in if you muted me, how you know that I need to have a question.
We're just muting Marla Butt speaking. I've just asked that they mute your microphone temporarily.
How do I signal in to respond to anything then?
Raise your hand.
I don't see that on
Meaning
my iPhone.
Marla Butt speaking. Go to the right-hand side of the screen. Excuse me, look at the participants at the bottom of the screen. There are
On my
14
iPhone, it's not showing
participants.
any. Okay.
We can see you. We can see you.
Right, I
So
can
just
see you
wave
as
your
well.
hand.
No, I can see you guys as well.
Yep, just raise your
I just
hand.
don't know if you mute me, how I would raise my hand by waving my hand. I got you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the interference is.
Stuart, I think it's better.
Okay.
It's way better. Victor Peabody.
Okay. So
Okay,
what would
This is
you
Bill
like to
Rowicki.
see? Bill?
This is Bill Rowicki. Do we have? I thought that Tina mentioned something that the applicant is okay with the postponement that we have. Is that true?
The applicant responded to our town engineer's letter that I received today indicating that they would comply with those conditions in that letter.
And Marla Butt speaking. Have they also
Yes.
indicated that they're willing to provide the additional information requested in the document that I sent to you that you forwarded to them regarding the plans and the support documents?
They have not officially responded to that document, but that was sent over to our engineer and part of her review, and she did review your comments, but I can certainly speak with the applicant. We could ask them if you'd like.
Marla Butt speaking. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to put my request for additional information in writing and mail it to the applicant.
Will do. Okay.
Thank you.
So we can revisit this at the next month's meeting, is that?
No, Marla Butt speaking. The application is officially received as of March 31st. And so at the next meeting, we should be looking to see what additional information the applicant has supplied to determine whether or not we can move forward without a hearing or whether it needs to go to a hearing.
Okay.
Right now, I have asked for additional information about the general description of the wetlands and its functions that would be potentially affected by it. There's some questions about the function of the detention basin. I need to get some of that information to determine whether or not this activity would qualify as a significant impact, or if in fact it is in the public's interest to hold a public hearing.
Okay. I understand. Tina LaJoy, sorry.
Marla Butt speaking. Tina, is the applicant's engineer still here in
Yes,
the meeting?
yes,
Can you ask him if he wants to provide any presentation at this point in time?
Callisto Burton could be unmuted, please. And he's under Lisa Burton. Can we hear you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can
Okay.
hear you. Thank you.
Hello, this is Callisto Burton. I'm the engineer for the applicant. I can give you if you'd like, a quick overview of the application and what we propose, and then answer any questions. This site has an existing house and an existing convenience store market on the property. It's proposed to demolish both buildings and add fuel, a fueling island. So we're going to put in a 3,000 square foot building. If you have the plans, that's the square in the middle of the plans. At grade level, it'll be a convenience store, an enhanced convenience store, a little bit of a market. It has a walkout basement in the back, and there will be an apartment underneath the store. So the walkout basement will be storage for the convenience store and an apartment. Then we're going to plan to put in a canopy with 3 dispensing islands. We did some testing on the site. Currently, there's a septic system in the rear of the site, near where the proposed detention basin is located. That was not a suitable area because the ground conditions change. So we wound up putting the septic system up in the parking lot by the canopy. And if you look in the plans, after the canopy, you have the highway, some pavement, the canopy, and then the septic system. I just want to let you know, in our application, we said there was no alternative analysis done, but we did have a plan prior to this. Previously along the rear curb line, I guess next to the trash enclosure, that would be if you go for the canopy towards the wetlands, we had a row of parking back there, so the pavement actually extended another 18 feet closer to the wetlands. We took that parking out and moved it to the left side of the property so that we could make more room for the detention basin in the back. Anyway, so that's the application. What we had originally proposed was that surface runoff from the parking lot will enter that detention basin. That detention basin will compensate for the additional runoff. In the engineer's review letter that we received today, rather than see the way we've had it run off, they'd rather have us put in a hooded catch basin and some a fuel filtering system. And they make a system called a fossil filter, which is one. So you could put that on an inlet, water can pass through it, a petroleum can't. So if there's a spill on the ground from whatever, from a car, from a dispenser, from the delivery truck, will be captured before it goes into the detention basin. Right, so there was a question about the detention basin. It is just that. It's a detention basin to accommodate the excess runoff, and then from that basin, it'll overflow and go into the wetlands. We did try to stay away from the wetlands limit line, except to fit this detention basin in, and that basin goes, I don't know, well, the basin itself, or the grading, the end of the grading is about 5 feet from the nearest wetlands line. Otherwise, we stay further away. We moved the tree line at the basin. We moved the tree line about 30 to 40 feet closer to the wetland. That's just at the basin. Behind the building, we haven't touched the existing tree line. Quick overview. Okay. The survey we submitted shows that beyond the wetland limit line is the stream, and there's a stream back there. So the stream is about 90 feet further into the property than the limit of the wetlands. All right. So this is a bordering wetland. If that's a quick overview, I can answer any questions.
Marla Butt speaking, Commissioner. There's a number of items on that I've asked to have clarification on that come from the drawings. And are you prepared to respond to those by providing us with revised drawings that clarify those issues?
Yes, I don't believe I've seen your, this is cliche, I'm sorry. I have the engineer's review. I don't know that I've seen your comments. I don't know that I could address your comments if you're talking about the wetlands and that sort of thing. You know, if there's other things I might be able to address, but we'll have to address them before the next meeting.
Marla Butt speaking. Could you then, once you do get the correspondence from Tina, and she's going to send you these comments via U.S. mail, give a reply back, a response back before the next meeting, if not addressing all of these, at least giving us a timeline when those issues could be addressed?
Well, we will try to address them right away. When is the next meeting anyway?
First Monday in June.
June 1st.
Okay, we will try to address them prior to that. I know I can address the engineering issues prior to that meeting.
I'm going to re-email them out to you right now, just so you have them.
Okay, yeah, if you email it to me.
Marla Butt speaking. Tina, if you're sending them out, put them with the return receipt requested.
This is Stuart Paisley. Did we receive the same things that you're sending, Tina?
Yes, I emailed it to everybody,
Okay.
but I can redo it.
Marla Butt speaking. I have no further comment on the application at this time.
Bill Rowinski speaking, Vice Chair. Does anybody else have any other comments?
Victor Peabody, I have none.
This is Cleaster Burton. I just have a question. Okay. You mentioned that there there's some threshold at which this would require a public hearing versus not. And I'm curious as to that condition.
Marla Butt speaking. The statute provides that there's no hearing to be held unless one of three conditions exists. One, the commission receives a petition within 14 days of the receipt of the application. Two, if it involves a significant impact. Or three, if it's in the interest of the public to hold a public hearing. So the holding of a hearing is at the discretion of the commission at this point in time, based upon what the significance is, which is part of the reason why I asked for an evaluation of the wetlands that we're going to be receiving the runoff from the site and its functions.
Okay. This is Cleesto Burton again. I'm going through your information here. I think we have some of this information. We've done a drainage study, but yeah, and we had a wetlands scientist, soil scientist, do the delineation. I wasn't sure if you go out and verify it, or I'll have my wetlands expert, I guess, write a letter as to the validity of the line that he delineated on site.
Marla Butt speaking. Who was your wetland scientist?
I think we used EcoScience.
Soil scientist?
Ecotech, I'm
Who?
sorry. Ecotech.
The name of the soil scientist? The name of the soil scientist?
I do not know who at Ecotech did it, but that was the firm. But I will supply all that.
Okay.
Bill Rowinski, Vice Chair here. Did somebody say that this application, by virtue of its date, has been statutorily received already?
Marla
Or is
Butt
it
speaking,
up for
yes.
consideration?
Marla Butt speaking, yes. It was statutorily received on March 31st, which is 35 days after its submission to Town Hall. Because there was no wetlands meeting in March, there was no quorum, and therefore it became 35 days from the date of submission, which was February 25th.
Okay, Bill Rowinski again, Vice Chair. Just questioning a point of order. What type of action should we be taking on this at this time?
Marla Butt speaking. There is no action that's required to be taken. There has been a request for additional information from the town engineer, as well as myself, which the applicant needs to respond to. And from the responses that you receive, the commission can then determine whether or not a public hearing is necessary.
Okay. Bill Rowinski, Vice Chair again. So no further action should be taken this evening? Is that correct?
Marla Butt speaking, it's correct.
Okay. Well, if there's no other comments on this, we'll move on to the next item on the list. Thank you very much for your input and all the discussion on that item. Next, new application. Tina, do you have any new applications?
Tina LaJoy, no, I do not.
Okay, moving on to item number 7, preliminary discussion. Is there any preliminary discussion on anything?
No, there is not. Tina LaJoy.
Marla Butt
Okay.
speaking. This is not an item in our normal bylaws agenda, preliminary discussion. I don't know why this is here. So,
Bylaw approval? Was that required to change which Monday of the month, I believe?
yes.
Yes.
I think we had to change it from the third Monday to the first Monday in the bylaws.
Yes.
Marla Butts speaking. Question, Tina, was that what the preliminary discussion was supposed to be, or was that going to be covered under administrative business bylaw approval?
I don't know why Christine put preliminary discussion on there. I don't know. It's usually on the planning and zoning agendas, so it's an error. Administrative business, I put the bylaw approval under there. We do need to vote on that. I did send out the new bylaws revised.
Did you already do that in the packet? This is Bill Rowinski again.
Yes, it should have been in your packet, the new bylaws.
Oh, no. This is Victor Peabody. You guys still there?
Yes.
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 Hello?
Hi.
Yeah,
You hear us?
You still there? Oh,
Yes.
it got quiet. I thought everybody hung up.
No.
Marla Butts speaking. Tina, when you sent out the new bylaws, I looked on page 4, order of business, number 9. And the order of business that you have there is not the one that we approved back in June 17th, 2019. So that's not correct in the copy that you sent out. The only thing that we were changing in the bylaws was the date of when the meeting would be held from the 3rd Monday to the 1st Monday. Somehow the old bylaws that predated June 17th got put in here under order of business. So I would move that the bylaws be approved only for modification of the change of the date of the meeting, and that all other provisions of the bylaws as approved of June 17th, 2019 be kept.
Okay, I'm not sure what happened there. I thought are you saying there was another change put into those bylaws? There was some other
Yes,
change?
when you had left town service, Marla Butts speaking. Yes, Tina, after you had left town service, the order of business was changed to what you see now, except for preliminary discussion that got put in there. So if you go back to the minutes of June 17th, 2019, you'll see what we changed in the order of business in the bylaws. That's when we approved it.
Okay, I didn't have that copy on my computer, evidently. I didn't have that. Okay.
Okay, this is Bill Rowinski, Vice Chair.
Speaking. So Bill, you have a motion on the floor without a second.
Do I have a
Victor
second?
Peabody, I'll second that.
This is Bill Rowinski again, Vice Chair. Any further discussion?
Question, Marla Butts. Who was that seconded it?
That was Victor Peabody.
Marla Butts, thank you, Victor.
Okay, we have a motion that's been made and seconded. Marla, are you in favor of it?
Yes.
Victor, are you in favor?
I'm in favor.
Stuart, you in favor?
yes, I'm in favor.
And I'm in favor, so the motion passes. We changed item 8A in the bylaws, regular meeting first Monday of each month. And next meeting, we'll have to address the other issue to make sure it's updated. Okay, moving on to 8A, 8B rather, Wetlands Agent Activity Report.
Yes, this is Tina LaJoy. Would you like me to email that out to you? It probably would be easier than going over the applications. It wasn't in your packet because it wasn't completed till today.
I'd like that. The email sounds good to me. Victor Peabody.
Marla Butts, I concur.
Okay. Thank you.
Bill Rowinski, Vice Chair, I agree also.
All right, will do.
There any other wetlands agent reports?
Just, I will put it in writing to you through email with everything that I've been working on, so you'll have that in your email shortly.
Okay, this is Bill Rowinski again, Vice Chair. Does anybody have any questions for Tina? Okay, then we'll
Marla
move
Butts,
on.
no.
We'll move on then. This is Bill again. Item 8C, the bills, the Woodstock Villager, the YMCA legal invoice. We had that in our packet also. Somewhere I have it. I forget the exact amount. Does anybody have the exact amount on their top of their head?
It's like, I just saw it, this is Stuart Peasley, it's like $29.40. Is that the right one?
That's what I got, Victor Peabody.
Stonebridge Press.
Marla Butts speaking. Marla Butts speaking. This is just something that, that Mark has to sign off on, Tina?
Yes, it was
Tina?
emailed to him. It was emailed to Mark for approval. Christine emailed it to him.
So Marla Butts speaking, no action is required by the commission.
Okay, and Bill Lewicki again, moving on to 8B, communications. We have, please unmute Tom Gata and John Barber and anyone else on that particular item. Mr. Gata, this is Bill Lewicki. Mr. Gata, are you with us?
I'm muted, waving.
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Last meeting I attended, I was requested to provide a packet showing the property in question with the copper sulfate contamination, given some dimensionals of where the property is in reference to my property. I drew up off of a survey of my property that showed the neighbor's property with the placement of her house. I made a copy of that and I drew in runoff, trees affected, and then I numbered this with in relation to the pictures that had been forwarded to Tina of all the copper sulfate application. So basically, I've provided the information that the board has asked for. Basically, what I'm trying to do is get this Wetlands Commission to petition the DEEP remediation department to complete a water solubility test to ascertain the amount of copper that has been applied. John Barber has got some information. I don't want to step on his information, but there's some information of runoff samples taken of water at the lake adjacent to my property with the contaminated property that shows extensive runoff of copper sulfate into the lake to the points where it's caustic to aquatic life. And so again, I am petitioning this board to petition the DEEP to make the steps that they need to make in order to get the soil samples that they need to do this water solubility test. A little bit of update as to what they are doing. The DEEP, they've done well water tests at my house, which came up clean. They also are in contact with the state of New York DEEP, as well as the EPA, with regards to, they have an action against this homeowner, as well as the provider of the copper sulfate out of Long Island. The New York DEEP is supposedly working that side of it because they're trying to get from the seller how much he sold to her. They know that she returned a 50-pound container with about 47 pounds left in it. But we know there were we're pretty positive there were purchases prior to that because she's been making these applications for years. Only last October was the first time they became aware of it. So what I provided to you, hopefully, I don't know if you've got copies of that or not, but it shows a pretty explicit drawing of the runoff on the property that all runs down to the lake, as well as the dead trees, and the relation of the numbers on this drawing relate to pictures that I supplied to Tina that are numbered with very poor spelling of a little description of each picture.
This is Stuart. Sorry, just one question. I'm looking at the site plan, John. This is Stuart Peasley, Tom, and so this is of your property between 115 and 123 Crooked Trail Extension.
Tom Gata, no, this is her property.
That's her property.
119 Crooked Trail Extension, as is labeled at the top of the drawing,
Okay.
is the property with the contamination. My property is at the left of this property. It's on the left margin of the page. It says 115 Crooked Trail Extension. And then on the right margin of the page, it says 123 Crooked Trail Extension. She's in the middle at 119. All the little kind of lines with arrows going towards where it says beach, that's all areas of runoff in the lake. Runoff, basically eroded areas in her property because she doesn't like grass. And there's all kinds of soil erosion going down to the lake. And if you see then you see a legend on the right bottom that shows stumps, oak trees 12 inches in diameter or larger, oak trees minus 12 inches or less. And then you see all the pictorials of trees on my property line with her. Those trees are all dead. Where you see S as stumps, those are stumps on her property where she cut every living thing that she owned. And she's been applying copper sulfate along the driveway adjacent to my property line since she cut that driveway in. I'm guessing that's about 3 years ago now. And she's applying copper sulfate on all those stumps, and the pictures that Tina has in her possession show the copper sulfate applications in reference to the numbered pictures with the handwritten descriptions.
So let me understand, just this helps a lot, Thomas, thank you. Stuart Peasley again. So she has stopped the application, correct?
She was contacted by the DEEP and she has stopped applying the product, yes. She sent back what she had left of the product, which was 47 pounds of a 50-pound tub. But she verbally told me, and she talked about it at the last meeting, that's on record, of her application of copper sulfate along my property line where it's labeled as driveway towards the road, in order to kill the roots of the trees that were going to pop up in what she eventually wants to do, pave a driveway. But everything along my property line with her, going all the way down to the lake, which you can see at the beachfront at the very bottom, there's a couple little X's. Those are decorative grasses, and a number of those have perished as well. So from the road all the way down to the lake, everything that's on my side of the property line that was shown there has all perished due to her copper sulfate applications. And all the the lines and the delineation going down towards the lake with the arrows, that's all runoff in troughs of eroded soil. And you can see in many of the pictures where she's made very heavy applications on stumps in basically her whole yard. The driveway that curves the right side of the property shows application pictures, and all those other stump areas show application of copper sulfate in the pictures. What John Barber from the Witches Wood Lake Association is going to talk to you about is the water samples that the Lake Association themselves took at 4 areas in the lake, which shows the amount of that there's basically a very large amount of copper sulfate leaching into the lake from her applications.
Thank you.
This is Bill Rowinski. Mr. Barber, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Could you give us some
Yep.
additional information?
Yep. Due to the situation, on February 19th, I brought 4 samples from the lake to the Phoenix Environmental Laboratories in Manchester. 3 of the 4 samples registered very low, and the measurement here for copper is micrograms per liter. But the sample I got on Tom's property closest to 119 Cricket Trail Extension was a reading of 174. And 174 is safe for human consumption and for fish consumption, but it is not safe for various types of freshwater. So I contacted Gene Pillow. I think most people know Gene works a lot of different areas for water safety and water, clear water. And she said, she sent me a chart, and for freshwater fish and for vertebrae and for things like caddisflies, the safe reading is somewhere between 14 and 25 micrograms per liter. In our next to Tom's property, it was 174, so it's quite a bit higher, and it was significantly higher than any other 4 areas of the lake. So that eliminated the chance that there's a copper reading somewhere else in the lake. But the other 3 were a pretty good cross section of the lake, and none of those showed anything higher than 0.005 milligrams per liter. So the reading next to Tom's property was quite high in comparison.
Tom Gata, that's pretty much 15 times higher than any of the other samples, what was retrieved at my property line with her. And John also took the samples when the lake had ice cover. So the water was on the surface of the ice, which is pretty much all runoff. And that's what the sample that was garnered. Basically, it's way above the acute and chronic levels of copper sulfate contamination for that environment.
Yep.
This is Bill Rowinski, Vice Chair. So, Mr. Gata, are you suggesting that we did send a letter that you talked about sampling for the runoff? Are you looking to sample from the water or the soil on her property?
Well, we know what the water, Tom Gata, through what John did and the association, the Lake Association, we know that the runoff is very heavily laden with copper, 15 times higher at her property line with me than anywhere else of the other 3 samples on the lake. So what I'm trying to push the DEEP to do is to do a water solubility test of the soils, because what she's put in the soils, there's been soil tests on my property that do not show a dramatic high level of copper sulfate, but they will not take samples from her property without her permission. She's refusing that. So they essentially need to get a search warrant, go to the courts to do that. They're trying to find out from the manufacturer how much was sold to get an idea of how much she applied. That has nothing to materialized as of yet. But the real story is in a water solubility test, how much copper sulfate is in that soil.
Marla
Bill
Butts.
Lewinsky again. Okay, go ahead, Marla.
Who has been your contact person at the DEP? Have you had more than one, and who are they?
They're all in the paperwork that I've submitted to you. Let me get to my notes here.
So it's Mr. Freegon?
Yes.
Raymond Freegon?
He's the, I'm not sure if he's the head of remediation, but he is one of the upper level persons at remediation. I was dealing with one of his subordinates as well. And let me see what his name is here. I got to go through my notes to get that. James Keeney, which I've also given that information to, he is from the pesticides division. He is the one that's pursuing the manufacturer or the distributor in Long Island to see how much was sold to her. They have refused to give that information up, and that's why they've got the DEP of New York and the EPA involved. Mike Senick is Ray Freegon's subordinate. He's the one that just sent to me the water tests that showed my well at least was not contaminated.
Marla Butts speaking. I think it might be appropriate for the Inland Wetlands Commission, the Inland Wetlands Agency, to make a request from DEP to provide the commission with the information that it has already acquired, as well as any steps that they plan to take to continue to pursue this issue. I think it would be good to have a response back from DEP in writing. We could request documents under the Freedom of Information Act, but before we pull that trigger, I think it would be best if we just try to get as much information as we can in the direction that they plan to take, and get them to place themselves on the record for that.
Victor Peabody, I'll second that motion. That'll give us a legal leg and what we can and cannot do. That's a great step forward.
Marla Butts speaking. Yes, I'll turn that into a motion. I move that the Wetlands Agency send a letter to the Raymond Freegon and James Cheney to provide information as to what steps they have taken already and what steps they plan to take and what documentation they currently have regarding this matter. Now it can be seconded.
Tom Gata.
Victor Peabody, I still want to second it.
Raising my hand.
Bill Lewinsky, right? Go ahead, Tom.
We know there's a large amount of copper sulfate reaching into the lake through the water samples that were taken by the association. We have pictures that I provided to you that show the vast amount of copper sulfate that was distributed on her property. I've given you the information as to what the DEP is in the process of doing right now. And none of that is doing a water solubility test, which is the only real way to determine how contaminated the soils on that property are. It seems to me that the motion that you've raised is just asking for information that is already available to you. And I'm kind of a little bit set back that with the amount of copper that's leaching into the lake at a caustic level 15 times higher than what's acceptable for for fish, clams, mayflies, whatever you want to have living in the lake in that area, that wouldn't be enough for this agency to say, we need to know how much copper's on that property and how long it's going to keep leaching into the lake, or whether the soils on that property are so contaminated they need to be remediated off the property so we don't continue leaching into the lake.
Marla Butts speaking. What I want to know from DEP is, are they willing to go for a search warrant? Are they willing to go to the Attorney General's office to make a search warrant? If they are not willing to do that, then there's no chance of getting a water solubility test. We have to know whether or not they're willing to go that route. That's a resource that they, in the past, they haven't used hardly at all. So I want to see how far they're willing to go. If they're not even willing to go that way, then that has to go to somebody other than the Wetlands Commission, because the Wetlands Agency cannot push DEP, but a legislator could. So what I wanted to do is get them to put their position on the mark. I mean, it can be included in the letter about recommending that a water solubility test of the soil is done, everything that you've already said, but to know whether or not they're willing to go that far.
Tom Gatta, right now they are not willing to go that far. That's the whole point of why I'm with you people right now. They don't want to expend that resource. They think this is too small of a fish to fry. And the bottom line is there's a lot of copper sulfate leaching into the wetlands there, which is a source of water for the Willimantic Reservoir. And it seems to me that should be enough for this commission to try to apply whatever pressures or powers of pressure that it may have to try to sway the DEP into performing that test.
So Marla Butts speaking. So in your discussions with the EP staff, they have told you that they are not going to go for a search warrant.
They have told me that they're not looking to go that route. That's why they're trying to find out from the distributor how much was applied.
Marla Butts speaking. So I'm not sure if they knew how much was applied, how that's going to change their attitude, whether they're going to go for a search warrant or not. If they're going to go for one or not. They've already got test results saying that there's problems.
Tom Gatta, I'm sorry, they don't have the report that was given to John and the John Barber and the association from, what is her name, Jean Pilo? Is that correct, John?
Yes, that's correct.
They don't have that in their possession. I did talk to Ray Freegon, or I emailed Ray Freegon about that situation, but they do not have that information in their hands yet. Whether that would sway them to do anything, I don't know. But I'm just thinking that every avenue possible to try to sway them to do the water solubility test is what's needed. And eventually I'm going to go to the media if it doesn't go anywhere, and I'm going to go to wherever I need to go, because I've got a dead zone on my property from what she's applied, and I don't want an 8 to 10 foot dead zone on my property for the life of my property, and then all of it leaching into the lake and doing everything it's doing to the lake as well.
Marla Butts speaking. Understood. So you would want the letter to have not just to find out what they've done and what they intend to do, but you also want them to have the additional information to stress that there should be a water solubility test of the soils.
Tom got it, yes.
I'll amend my motion to include, that the letter include a request that DEEP conduct or pursue water solubility test of the soils on 119. Is 119 correct? Crooked Trail Extension.
John Barber, yes, that's correct. 119 Crooked Trail Extension.
I've made a motion to modify the original. Bill, that would need a
This is
second to
Bill.
forward.
Bill Rowinski, is somebody willing to second that amendment?
Victor Peabody, yes, I will second that amendment, and hopefully we get an answer. Because I'm not, it seems to be getting a little, I don't know, scary is the word, but there's threats of media, and it's getting a little, I think, a little out of hand, don't we? And I don't think that we have the power to do anything anyway. This wetlands to supersede the EPPA, whatever it is. Do we? Maybe I'm wrong, Marla?
Depends on the evidence that we have. And right now, it's not quite clear. I wanted to get specifically their reports, their documentation. But
Exactly. That's where I was heading.
But that's part of what this request was involved in, is asking for that, as well as asking them for their position on the water solubility test of the soils. So I think you can ask for both things at the same time.
Okay, very good. Victor Peabody.
Bill Rowinski, is there any further discussion from anybody else?
This is John Barber. If there's any additional information needed, I know I sent Tina the basic summary. If there's more detailed information needed about the water test, I can provide that.
Marla Butt speaking, please do.
It's John Barber. Should I send it to Tina? Is there a group email I should
Yes.
send it to?
Send it to Marla Butt speaking, send it to Tina.
Okay,
She'll forward it to the appropriate members.
okay.
Any further discussion? Bill Rowinski?
Stuart Peasley, my only comments would be that I think that this has the substance or the need for or the proper presentation of the substance in order for it to get any footing. It hasn't gotten the proper footing yet. And I think a lot of it has to do with just, you know, presentation and you know, this is much better, Tom, than what we saw before, and it's much clearer. But I think for you to be satisfied, we got to do some work on the presentation here. And it's relatively some simple steps that I would recommend is that you can download some location maps from the GIS NECOG website and just really dress up this presentation to giving exact location and details that makes it gives more clarity to the situation. That would be my recommendation, but you've done a great job compared to what we had before. I just think that it would be better if we could make it stronger.
Tom Gata, the drawing is on a stamped blueprint. The drawing that I provided is the house location, the sidelines.
This one?
And the beachfront area, that's all off of a stamped blueprint from my property that just happens to show her property as well.
It's just modified by you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just saying that I'm just trying to be constructively, helping. It's just, it could be a little better, that's all. If it,
How could it be better? I'm asking that. That's my question. It has delineations of all the pictures that were given into Tina that shows all the copper sulfate application.
okay, number one, I it's like for me, I look at these all the time, and I didn't know where north was. I didn't know exactly, that this was the property of the, I don't know what you'd call her name, but she's the one who's actually dumping the stuff. But I didn't know that was her property until I had to ask her a question. So what you have to do, you have to consider is, like, if you present this to somebody you're not there to explain it, they will just be not helped by it. So you want to make it stronger so that when you're not in the room, they look at it and they understand.
This Tom Gatta, this hasn't been presented to the DEP. This was only a presentation for your board.
Okay, but the next
more detail.
The next step is they're gonna want the same information that you're giving us at some point.
They've been at the property with their agent. I called the emergency spill line when I saw the application. They sent an agent out who took photographs of the entire site. So they're abreast of what's going on. They know what the site looks like, and they have photographs. And an agent came out from the pesticides division and took plant samples. A water test agent came out and took water tests. So they know what's going on here, and they have their own pictures of the site when it was covered in the copper sulfate. So this was provided to give you guys insight, because you asked for insight as to better insight as to what was going on where, and so that's what I provided to you.
Okay.
So Victor Peabody, we have a motion and it was seconded. Are we going to do? I'm getting lost here. Are we sending the letter? What was the outcome of that?
Bill Rowinski, we haven't voted on it yet. We're just leaving the door open for any particular further discussion. Okay. We'll move on, unless somebody has something more to add. We'll move along to a vote. Just to summarize, Marla's motion that she's saying that we create a letter send to the DEP to ask them what documentation they have on file and what their intentions are to do with that and what actions they are planning to take, and to also request them to do a water solubility test of the soil on Mrs. Kovalevsky's property. Is that correct, Marla?
Marla Butt speaking, that's correct.
Okay, does my second count, Victor Peabody, or should I do it again?
No, you're fine. We've already done it. The motion has been made and seconded. Now we'll vote on it. Marla, are you in favor of that?
Marla Butts, yes, in favor of the motion as amended.
Victor Peabody, you in favor of that?
Victor Peabody, yeah.
Stuart Peasley, you in favor of that?
Sure.
All right. And this is Bill Rowinski once again, and I'm in favor of it also. Perhaps, Tina, we can discuss how to go about doing that, and what we should have in that. And between us and Marla, maybe we can verify it and make sure that we have what we think should be in there. Is that okay, Tina?
Yes, that's okay. Tina LaJoy.
Tom Gatta,
Okay.
Tom Gatta, I'm willing to work with Tina for any information she needs of emails, communications that I've had with Ray Freegon and other members of the DEP. to put together whatever she may need to do that.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Now, getting back to, this is Bill Rowinski once again, getting back to a comment you made on your map earlier. You talked about all the vegetation basically being gone, and I believe you said something about there being erosion occurring there.
Yeah,
Mr. Gata?
if you look at, yeah, hi, Tom Gata. If you look at the map that I gave you guys, or the print that I gave you guys, all the lines that are basically moving towards the lake with arrows moving towards the lake, that's up above towards the road, which would be the top of the page where it says Road 119 Crooked Trail Extension. Those lines are pretty much on flat land that heads in downhill. When it gets down to about the house level, it's all rutted, eroded areas that go down into the lake. And to the left of where it says walls down by the beach, that trough there is probably a foot deep and 2 feet wide.
See, Stuart Beasley here. I don't know where this is on the lake. I just see that the 3 properties, 1 full and 2 sidelines, and 1 where, that's what I'm saying. A locus map would be good. 2 scale. I just would tune it up a little bit. That's all. It's just my suggestion.
Okay, Bill Rowinski again. It appears that there's an erosion issue there, and that the slopes are not stabilized, and there's things being washed into the lake. Is that correct?
Tom Gata, yes. Where the lines go down on the left of where it says wall. So I don't know how many yards of sand she dropped in there, but there's so much sand that's washing down to the lake that on my property line with her, I built a little stone jetty because the sand has migrated around my stone wall about 30 feet down my stone wall to the point where it's above the level of the lake. I keep shoveling the sand out. And so I built this little stone jetty to try to make a little bit of a barrier to her sand migrating over to my side in front of my property. And again, now it has migrated around the stone wall and almost buried that stone little jetty I made, and is now almost at the lake level. If the lake it's a little bit high right now. If the lake was at normal levels, it would be above the grade of the lake, the amount of sand that's washing in from that wash just on that side. On the other side, where there's 4 arrows going towards the lake, the far right arrows are on Gary Wolf's property, 123 Crooked Trail Extension. And his well cap is pretty much right where those 2 pathways on the far right of the page are heading to the lake. Those go over his well cap. His well was tested by the DEEP, but they did not give me any information as to what happened with his well test. And I have not communicated with them to find that out. I'm going to give Gary Wolf, the property owner, the information so he could contact them and get that information from them.
Stuart Beasley calling again, talking again. Tina, have you been out to the site?
No, sir, I have not. Would you like me to go out?
I'm available to meet anybody out there at any time you may want to go out there.
I
Bill
think it's a
Rowinski.
good idea. Yeah. It'd be a great idea.
Bill Rowinski, it seems like at least an inspection by Tina is warranted, and further action may be warranted to control the erosion, both along the slopes and into the lake. Unless somebody would propose a motion for some different action.
I would make a motion that we have our CEO make a site visit and, you know, record her observations. We're going to need it at some point, and we've got to build up, you know, this kind of information, because I think this is going to go on for a while with the DEP. So the more clear our presentation is, the better off the process will be.
And this is John Barber. As part of the Lake Association, I'd be glad to take part in that meeting too and add anything I can.
So motion's made.
I'll second it, that Tina goes out. I think that's a great idea. Victor Peabody.
All right, Marla, you and Bill Rowinski, Marla, are you in favor of that?
If we're voting on it, yes.
Victor, you in favor of that?
Yes, sir.
Stuart, you're in favor? Stuart?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Yes.
Okay, and I'm in favor of it also. So Tina, did you try to set up an inspection of the site as soon as possible
Yes, I will.
and observe what the erosion situation is there, and if some further action is warranted immediately?
Yes, I will. I will get
Okay.
in touch with John and Tom about meeting them out there.
Yep. Is that something you might be able to get through this week?
I think Monday would probably be better if you guys are available. I mean, over the weekend also I'm available, but Monday.
Okay, well, I'll let you work that out. The sooner it happens, it'll be the better.
Okay. I'll have to check my schedule for toward the end of the week.
Tom Gata, Tina, you have my information, right?
Yes.
And I'm available most any time to meet you over there.
Okay.
Okay, Bill Rowinski again. Is there any further discussion on this issue? Okay, not hearing any. Let's move along. You have a Connecticut Federation of Planning and Zoning quarterly newsletter in your packet. And now we come to citizens' comments. Does anybody have any citizens' comments? This is the open forum to address and say what you would like to.
Tom Gata, I would just like to thank the board for spending the time to address this situation.
John Barber, I second that. Thanks for that. Thanks for all your time.
I for one, Stuart Peasley, I'm glad to help out. In fact, I was going to say, Tina, if you want to, I'm pretty close by. If you want me to join you, I'd be happy.
Sounds good.
Tom Gata, I think you will all be amazed by the starkness of this project.
Imagine.
That is true.
Remember, this is the woman that said that she doesn't like grass at the last hearing, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any further comments by anybody? Is everybody unmuted?
Yep.
I'm unmuted.
I move to adjourn.
All right, that's what I wanted to hear.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second that motion. Victor Peabody.
All in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for your patience this evening and for all your input. This is Bill Rowinski. This concludes the meeting at 8:45 p.m.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.